Hi ladies, today I have a special live for you from one of the women in the group who was asking me how to be prepared for her reproductive endocrinology appointment. She had made her first appointment to see a specialist, fertility specialist, and she wanted to know how to be ready. So I put together something for you all because I'm pretty sure many of you will want to know the same thing. So here's what I've got to say. And if you look back at some of the lives in our group, I did a live on, I forget what it was called, maybe like red flags to pay attention to when you are seeking out care for your fertility journey. So go look at the video section of our group, and there should be titles on those hopefully, and see if you can find the one that I did regarding that. So you can also take that in. There might be one or two little pointers in here scattered about that are repeated on there because they're really important. So how to prepare for your appointment with a new reproductive endocrinologist. So many women decide to go at different points in their fertility journey depending on how long they've been trying to conceive or what their age is. So some women are in their 20s and have been having trouble conceiving for, 8 months. Most doctors will say, don't come here unless you've been trying to conceive for a year. And I'm kind of on the fence about that suggestion because 8 or 9 months is a long time and there might be some tweaks that can happen. And unfortunately, ironically, a reproductive endocrinologist isn't going to tell you really well how to track your cycle. Excuse me. Or, if there's something that this woman might be missing in her journey, they're not really telling you the details on all of that. So if they were, I would say, awesome, but what I found is that mostly they're going to do some lab work with you. And listen, if you have a gut instinct about anything with your health, go to the doctor and seek their help. And if they try and tell you if they try to turn you away or downplay the scenario and they're not willing to go on that investigation and inquiry with you, hire somebody else. Okay? There's so much gaslighting in the fertility and women's health community, and I advocate with my clients, for my clients, to make sure that they're not having that happen to them. So if you are, 6 months into your journey and, you want to get a workup, say you're over 30, you're 6 months in and you're concerned, go get a workup. But here's what I want to tell you. There's more to this, but what I want to say first is whenever you go to the doctor, you got to remember they're looking for a problem. So there might not be a problem, but they might look at your blood work and say, oh, your estrogen is high and maybe that's what's causing it. That is absolutely possible, but there's a rabbit hole that you can go in. So you really have to be grounded in the approach in order to make sure that you don't go down this rabbit hole and think that something's going on with your health when really there's not. It is very normal for women to have high estrogen in our culture. There's lots of things we can do for it naturally that help it. And so you have to take everything with a grain of salt. So it's kind of dangerous. It's dangerous to go to the doctor because they might find problems where there aren't any, and they might want to start doing protocols and procedures with you that aren't really necessary. So first, you want to know where you stand. You're 6 months in. Do you want to do any kind of procedural approach if there's some kind of finding? Now, there might be a finding. Here's what's important. Here's what's the most important thing about going if there's something going on. You could get an HSG, which is a hysterocell pangogram, okay? And that's where they shoot dye into your uterus and your in your fallopian tubes, and they do an x-ray and they see if there's any blockages. This is a really integral test that could change everything, because the dye pushing through the fallopian tubes could actually clear blockages if there are any. So it's kind of like a treatment and a test. And that could be an issue for you. And if that were, just getting that procedure done could be amazing for you. On the flip side, you might see that there's a polyp in there or something else, and maybe it's not affecting the outcomes at all, but your doctor wants to go in there and start working on it. So is that what you want to do? Or do you want to take a wait and see approach again? So you have to kind of think of, come back to your center and what your truth is. Like, what do you want to do? How much invasive procedural things are you willing to do at what point in your journey? So I really want you to think about that. It's different for every woman. There's no right answer. It's a matter of what is your truth. So you don't get pulled down this rabbit hole, okay? That's like number one kind of sidebar. Second, I spoke with a woman last week who told me about her journey. She got IUIs done with a blocked tube. Why would they do that? I have no idea. That was a red flag for me. She actually found another provider because, you know, they took $1,000 or more from her and they did an IUI, and an IUI is really dependent on your natural ovulatory process. So if you're ovulating and your egg isn't coming down your fallopian tubes because you have a blockage, then IUI is not going to work. So that makes me very skeptical about the ethics of that practice. So you should never, do an IUI unless you do a hysterocsalpingogram at HSG test. Okay, that's number one. Okay, and if they want to do that with you without doing that first, that is a big red flag that you need to hire somebody else. Okay, because they shouldn't be doing that. It's just illogical. Next, the difference between an HSG and a hysteroscopy. So they might want to do one or both of those. Hysteroscopy only looks at the uterus. It can see blockages going into the fallopian tubes, but an HSG is much better, I would say, and I would request that. I would request, if you go to a reproductive endocrinologist, ask them to do an HSG test on you. Ask another really important thing is that they test, if you're in a heterosexual relationship, they should be testing your partner's sperm. If they're testing you and they're not testing your partner, big red flag. First of all, it's sexist. It's saying that women are responsible for fertility challenges and men are responsible for 50% of it. So if you're in a practice that's not talking about that, go somewhere else. Okay? They need to be testing your sperm's mobility, motility, and morphology. Okay? Another thing that they're going to do, that I would do, is get like your hormonal labs done. Again, how they look at your labs and how somebody like me looks at your labs are different. We have different ranges of what's considered normal. So one thing that's really important that they're not doing is they're not testing on the right day. So you want to test your hormones on the day that they're most available for readings, okay? Day 3 of your cycle is the day you want to test. If it's impossible, day 2 and day 4. Otherwise, don't test. However, there's one caveat to that, which is progesterone. Progesterone needs to be tested on day 21 of your cycle or 7 days past ovulation. That's the more accurate definition. Some women don't ovulate on day 14. So if you don't ovulate on day 14, then you don't want to get it on day 21. You want to get it 7 days after you ovulate. So you'll want to track your cycle. And I encourage women to track their cycle regardless, because it's empowering to have body literacy and to know when you're ovulating so that you can make the best out of your month. If you know when you're ovulating and you're in touch with your body, you sometimes have 50% more of a chance to get pregnant every month. 50% more of a chance to get pregnant if you know your fertile days, because when you're doing those OPK tests, you got 2 days out of it when you could have 5. Okay? So, day 3 hormones, FSH, estradiol, LH, DHEA. They might test DHEA if you're in your mid-30s or later. They're going to test for AMH. That's their whole thing, okay? Let's talk about AMH. AMH is reflective of how your body will respond to IVF treatment. Okay. AMH is reflective of how your body will respond to IVF. Okay, when I say that, do you hear me talk about it reflects how your body is capable of producing healthy eggs? Does it tell you how it reflects your capability of getting pregnant naturally? No, I didn't say either of those things. So, it does not reflect your body's capability of making and releasing quality eggs. It does not reflect your body's ability to conceive naturally. You can change your AMH, you can change your FSH with lifestyle and supplementation and food and nutrition. AMH reflects how your body is recruiting eggs for the egg release cycle every month, how that process is going. It does not reflect how many eggs you have left. It does not reflect the quality of your eggs. It reflects the quality of that process, and that can be changed, by the way. That can totally be changed. And it also doesn't reflect your ability to conceive naturally. Okay, I want you to remember that, because women go and get their AMH tested and they think the end of the world happened. So I don't want that to happen to you, because it's unnecessary suffering. Okay? Got it? All right. So, day 21 for progesterone. Day 3 for other hormones. If they tell you they don't want to test on day 21, be like, hey, then can we just can I do this on my own? Or day 3 of your cycle, Unfortunately, fertility centers are usually like factories, and you have to book months out, so you don't even know what day you're going to be there. Talk to them about this. How do they feel about the day that they're testing you? Okay, you can get these tests on your own. There's a website called letsgetchecked.com. There's a women's health test on there that you can get sent to your house for $100 if you're in the US. And you prick your blood at home, and you could do the test on the day that you want, okay, to test it on. So day 3 or day 21 for progesterone. Really important. You want your practitioner to talk about you and your body with respect, reverence, and care. Okay, if they're flippant to you, if they make you feel like you're asking an inappropriate question, if they're making you feel like you're a pain in their ass, if they're making you feel like you shouldn't be asking this question, if they're making you feel uncomfortable for any of the questions that you're asking, red flag, leave. Okay? You're spending really good money on your care. You do not need to pay these people if they're not going to respect you. Okay? You have the upper hand because you are the one with money. You are paying for the kind of care that you want. Go somewhere else. Many of you don't have that privilege. Figure it out. Figure it out. Go drive an hour to a different place. Get referrals. Get referrals to good places. See what the reviews are. Don't just go anywhere. Sometimes the bigger places that are well known are not the greatest ones. It really depends on where you live. If you live near a big city and you're comfortable, go there. Okay. You have a right to request whatever reasonable blood work and procedures like HSG, sperm count, labs that you want. Okay, generally speaking. Okay, you can't be like, I want an IUI. Maybe you can be like that, and maybe they would let you do that because you're giving them money to do that. But a lot of times, I said, like I was talking about earlier, they'll make you be like, well, you're too young, or you're not old enough, or I don't think we need to worry about that right now. You hold your ground and be like, you know what? I actually do want to get that tested. Would you support me doing that? And if they decline for some reason, then I would really truly find another provider who's willing to listen to your needs. They're out there. I hate to be so black and white about this, but people, this is like a relationship you're starting potentially with someone. You need trust. I mean, the stories that I've heard from women about being taken advantage of, again, this woman who had had a blocked fallopian tube, they sent her through IUI, whether or not they willfully ignored that information or they literally didn't have their shit together to look at her file and figure this out. I don't know what it was, but either way, it's not worth $1,000 of your dollars and your time and the stress related to it. So then Anyway, it's a whole thing. You know, you don't have a successful IUI. They do a couple of them. You don't have more successful IUIs. And over, your faith in your body diminishes, and it's not your fault. A lot of the times it's not your fault at all. And you've paid for this procedure in money and self-respect and self-love and trust. You've given away your trust. You've allowed them to erode your trust in this process. That is not worth any amount of money. You couldn't pay for that, right? So you want to retain that. Okay. The other thing you want to think about is you want to ask them what their findings are. Ask them if they have a clear diagnosis. Do you have a clear diagnosis for me? Okay, they may be like, well, your estrogen is high. So listen, if you have an answer like that, or even if they say, well, like, your estrogen is high, or maybe that's the issue, or your AMH is low, and that's probably why. First of all, if anyone tells you that you're not getting pregnant is because your AMH is low, they're lying to you, because that is not a reason why you wouldn't get pregnant. That does not reflect your body's ability to get pregnant naturally. So that's a problem for me. There is something else going on that they're not seeing, and they don't know that because they look within their paradigm. They have a very myopic paradigm. They're only looking at specific things, and the things that they're looking at lead to procedures. So remember, when they're with you, they're thinking of you and the procedures that they can do and the medication they can give you. Okay? Their solution is always going to be a medical procedure or pharmaceutical solution, generally. Okay, that's why you're going to them, because that's how they learned to treat fertility. They didn't learn to treat fertility with nutrition. They're not going to tell you that stuff. Some doctors are kind of keen on supplementation, but they're kind of like from my experience, very, very few and far between. And if they do, they're kind of kitchen sinking it a little bit. Okay, so don't go to them thinking that they're going to give you some kind of integrative advice about how to get pregnant naturally. They're going to tell you what your next step is based upon their findings and the procedures and things, medications that they prescribe and they use. Okay, so if they say, well, your next step would be this, that's your next step based upon their paradigm. That's not your next step. You can choose to sign on to that next step in their paradigm, or you can choose to say, okay, well, thank you for that information, and I'm going to go see what else I can do in the meantime. But women are so scared that they're losing time that they will just do that and not even check in about, like, is this what I want to do? Is this the actual next right step? Can I look to nutrition? Can I look at supplementation? Can I get a fertility coach who's educated in hormonal health? That would be me. To help me suss this out so we can address the underlying problem. Here's another thing. They're not really testing your thyroid, and they're not testing your thyroid antibodies, which are really important. So even if you have a normal range TSH thyroid, they might test it, but they might not. If you have under 2.5, if you have above 2 to a 2.5 TSH, your thyroid might be sluggish. And doctors do not see that. From their perspective, from what they learned, that is simply not their paradigm for determining if the thyroid is optimized. Okay, that's different for me. I work with thyroid a lot with my clients because it is totally an underdiagnosed epidemic with women's health and fertility. It's a black hole that women are in. They're having trouble getting pregnant. They go through reproductive endocrinology. They go all the way down the line and they give up because they're not getting pregnant with their own eggs. But the problem isn't that IVF doesn't work for them and that they're broken. The problem is they haven't been correctly diagnosed because they didn't go to the right place. And this is a huge problem, and it's not your fault. It's like really, really, really messed up that we don't have care providers that can really address this. And then women lose hope and they move on with their lives. They don't have their families when they could have actually gone to the root cause and fixed that. Okay, so your doctors aren't going to test for your thyroid antibodies. Thyroid antibodies show that your body is actually attacking your own thyroid gland. Okay, thyroid is super important. Every cell of our body has a thyroid receptor. What that means is that every function Every single cellular function and activity that happens has thyroid activity involved. Same thing with vitamin D. That's why vitamin D is such an integral hormone. It actually acts like a hormone in the body. So that was kind of like a Freudian slip, but which is true, is that vitamin D acts like a hormone. There's a vitamin D receptor on every cell in your body. Okay, so your body needs vitamin D and thyroid to run all of its business. Okay, thyroid antibodies will indicate Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid disease where your body is attacking itself. If your body is attacking itself and you don't know about it, no wonder you're having some challenges. Okay, so doctors usually won't check, regular doctors, family practice doctors won't check for antibodies. I asked mine, she's a doctor of osteopathy. Those are usually really more, in the grand scheme of things, DOs are more integrative than MDs, but she would not do that testing for me. And here's the other thing. If you do have some sort of hypothyroid issue that's underdiagnosed or undiagnosed or even diagnosed, 90% of people who have hypothyroid have Hashimoto's. Okay, if you should have no antibody activity. If you have a little bit, you're slowly entering that territory. It's a low amount, but it's that territory. Okay, so you really need to know about that, because if that's the case, there needs to be certain supplements and certain nutritional things that you get on immediately to mitigate that. You can always reach out to me if you think that might be a silent player for you. And I'm going to do another live probably on signs and symptoms of hypothyroid challenges. So going back to this aspect of clear diagnosis, ask them if they have a clear diagnosis. Honestly, it's really hard to have a clear diagnosis for fertility. There's so many things that could be going on. And because reproductive endocrinologists aren't really looking at some of the more underlying causes, they don't tend to really have one a lot of the time. So ask them, if they have the clear diagnosis, they're telling you what the diagnosis is, and be like, okay, well, is this the reason I'm not getting pregnant? Are you sure that that's the reason why I'm not getting pregnant? They're probably going to say no. You're asking them this question because you want to know if you'd be like, okay, so do you know what's causing me to have trouble? And you want to get all of the outcomes to your tests as soon as you can. So if they do an HSG, get that information back to you as soon as possible. The woman that went through IUI without, with the blocked fallopian tube, they never told her that she had blocked fallopian tubes. If you get tests, then they need to be following up with you and sending you your results and your blood work. Okay. And treating you like an active participant in your health. So, again, just to bring it on home. So what they're really looking for, or what they're looking at, is they're looking at your blood work through their lens. Okay? They're through the lens of their set of tools. So they are determining what tool could work for you, not whether or not you can conceive naturally, because that is much less clear. So they're looking at your blood work. Remember this, when you go in there, their whole objective is to figure out what protocol, what procedure, and what medication from their arsenal, from their toolbox, can help you, theoretically help you conceive. So if you're looking for answers from them about why you're not getting pregnant, it might be a struggle to get clear. Sometimes it is clear. Sometimes it is. But oftentimes it's not, because they're not looking at the right things. So this is a really long live. Please post any questions, PM me, write any questions below. I really hope this helped you. And I hope you're taking care of yourself today.